The USDA Forest Service Southern Research Station, producing science you can use.
Good morning, and I want to welcome our guests to the Southern Research Station. My name is Wayne Zipper, and I'm the Special Emphasis Program Manager for LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexuals, and transgenders. And LGBT is one of 7 special emphasis programs within the federal government. These programs exist primarily to identify policies, procedures, and practices that may present barriers to the hiring and advancement of these groups. The Special Emphasis Program Manager, myself, acts as an advocate for the program.
Has left the conference.
Somebody doesn't like me. And this event is the first in the Southern region that actually emphasized the LGBT group. I would not have been able to do this, though, without 2 colleagues, Jennifer Plyer and Felipe Sanchez. They did most of the back work for this work. And I also understand that Alan Murray was also helpful in putting together the panel, too. So I say thank you for that. And then with that, I'm going to ask Jennifer to come up and to do a safety briefing, and then Rob, our station director.
Has left the conference.
I might break out in karaoke here with this mic, sorry. So welcome everyone and good morning. I just wanted to conduct a brief safety meeting or safety briefing. So the front door is our closest exit, and we would go to the lower parking lot to gather if there was some kind of emergency that prompted us to leave the building immediately. So please keep that in mind. Also, just a reminder, the restrooms are just right outside this door. So if you need to access the facilities, that's where they're located. So I hope we have a good meeting today and lots of interaction, and thanks for being here.
Well, I'm Rob Dowdrick, Station Director for Southern Station.
Has joined the conference.
Well, I'm glad. Southern Station Director, and I certainly want to welcome all of you all. I really appreciate taking the time to come and engage with us. As Wayne indicated, there's a much larger population out there that's going to be dialing in as such. But one of the things we're trying here at the Southern Station is to do something different with communication. All of our all-employee meetings now are not only streamed live, but we also record them and they're made available to employees at a later date. We've understood that that's been very successful because there are lots of people that have field activities and so on, and when the weather's nice, you need to be doing what you need to be doing, and then you can come back and visit, whether it's an all-employee meeting or a meeting like this where we have special things going on. I think it's mostly other stations, but we also have the WO, our Washington office headquarters in DC that's joined us. So I want to welcome the other stations and the Northeastern area, I guess, is the others that participate.
Has left the conference.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. I encourage good, lively conversation. Do we have a dial-in phone for taking questions from outside? I see heads nodding yes, so I look forward to that as well. I'll probably pop in and out. I've got a couple of other meetings, so please excuse me for that. But I'll drop in as the morning goes by. We're here until noon or so. Okay. Good. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Jennifer, for the safety briefing, and thanks Wayne for putting all this together. I know these are not easy events to put together, especially when you've got so many other people on. So with that, thanks, and enjoy the morning.
Our second member is Yvonne Cook-Riley. She is with the Blue Ridge Pride Group. I'm not going to go into the individual groups. I'm going to let the individual speakers do that, and they'll give you a little bit of information about who they are and what they do. They felt that they'd rather have the time to talk about their topics. The next speaker will be Judy Rudolph. She is an attorney and deals with a number of gay issues. The next speaker will be Mel Fergenbaum. and he is with the Family Friends of Lesbian and Gays. The connected via VTC is Blake. He's in the Washington office. He's back there behind us. All right. The next speaker will be Jim Fawcett. He is with the Youth Out in Western New York, North Carolina. Is that correct, Jim? Sir. Thank you. And then we have Chris. I wanted to say the German way, but Weinbrennan, and he's with the Western North Carolina AIDS Project. And then finally, Alan Murray, and he's with the Community Liaison Organization for Support of Education and Reform. I'm going to turn this over to the panel now and I'll let them do their individual topics. They'll introduce themselves and then give a 5 to 10 minute presentation. At 10 minutes, I'll let them know. All right?
I guess that means I'm up first. My name is Jeff Mersacci. I'm actually an attorney by profession with offices in Asheville and Raleigh. I do primarily estate planning work. I've also written a couple of books on estate planning specifically for domestic partners and an e-guide. But a lot of my volunteer time is with the Human Rights Campaign, which is a national group promoting LGBT equality. Now, since this is an LGBT panel, I believe in coming out. I'm straight. But I'm actually among a lot of other allies who have come together in this recent Amendment 1 fight that you'll hear an awful lot about today. And how exactly is that affecting people? And I know that we're broadcasting to a lot of other states. A lot of other states have some similar restrictions. But let me also just make sure I'm going into exactly what the Human Rights Campaign is. It's the largest civil rights organization working to achieve equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans. The Human Rights Campaign represents a force of more than 1 million members and supporters nationwide, all committing to making HRC's vision a reality. Founded in 1980, HRC advocates on behalf of LGBT Americans, mobilizes grassroots actions in diverse communities, invests strategically to elect fair-minded individuals to office, and educates the public about LGBT issues. Now, the Human Rights Campaign it's a national organization, but it also has city-centric local divisions called steering committees. North Carolina is actually the one exception nationwide where we have a statewide organization rather than focused on a specific city. And one of the things we do is we raise money, and we use it in various struggles for LGBT equality in various ways. The most visible means comes about in influencing state and federal legislation or fighting for or against state ballot initiatives, and also supporting candidates. Now, in one of its most critical areas actually isn't in the political realm. It's with the charitable and education arm of the Human Rights Campaign. One of the things that the HRC does on an annual basis is puts out a corporate equality index. And in that index, it rates companies on their policies, their procedures, and how they handle certain things like partner benefits and other issues related to employment. And there are a lot of members of the community who will read through that guide and decide where they want to spend their money, as well as see, do I really want to work for specific kinds of companies? And in that equality index, it actually brings about a good story of, it's not one of mine, but a member of our board of directors works for a big advertising firm, and a company that's a European car manufacturer wanted them to do a series of commercials because they heard about this great lucrative LGBT market. Well, she sat down, looked through the corporate equality index, and saw that their rating was very, very low. And so she said, look, we could take your money and we could put together really good commercials, but there's no way members of the LGBT community are going to put down $30,000 seeing what your policies are. So start with employment non-discrimination policies. Start with partner health insurance benefits. Start with a general statement about how you're open to employing everyone regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. And they've been progressing up that scale for several years. So it is working. At the local level, the Human Rights Campaign is involved in Pride and many other events and festivals, and we have a lot of volunteers that come out and do certain events like that. Our North Carolina group did 8 Pride events last year and generated an awful lot of enthusiasm and a lot of volunteers that are coming out for other issues and ways to help. And speaking about Amendment 1, Amendment 1 was a ballot initiative. It's only been a little more than a month ago that it ended up passing. And it states that marriage between a man and a woman is the only domestic legal union recognized in North Carolina. Now, while that sounds very simple, and it was advocated as simply keeping marriage between a man and a woman, there are a lot more far-reaching effects. One of the things it does is it eliminates the possibility of civil unions, which a lot of people are actually in favor of, even if they are against the term marriage being applied. It actually cut out the ability of municipalities in North Carolina to provide partner benefits. And a lot of the things that were mentioned as other negative side effects are starting to come true. One of them was that it would have a big impact on domestic violence issues because the relationship between the parties when we're talking about domestic violence was spelled out in the statutes, but it wasn't limited to marriage. People who cohabitate, people who date, people who are co-workers in the same place. Those all ended up being part of the domestic violence statutes, but now the victims, based on that relationship, that's up in the air. And I already understand that there are a lot of defense attorneys out there bringing up this amendment in defense of their clients. There was also issues with health insurance that are starting to come up in various companies. Can we or can't we actually provide these benefits? And the municipality angle, I think it was one day after it passed that an official in Charlotte already started to call to stop eliminating partner health benefits and stop paying for it with tax dollars. So all of the horrible things that people were saying this could come true, well, they're out there. They're starting to get some traction. All right. Just want to go very briefly on some estate planning issues. I know that my time is short, but I do actually have a website that talks about Amendment 1 and what these issues, how they affect estate planning and other things, and it's afteramendment1.com. Just very simple. So you can follow up on that, or I'm happy to take questions. We really don't know exactly what the impact is going to be of Amendment 1 on things like powers of attorney and wills. My analysis, and there are other attorneys that may agree or disagree, is as long as you're not relying upon a relationship as the basis. In other words, you're not putting my partner is Jane Doe, and then later on in a will, I leave everything to my partner, or I name my partner as my executor. As long as you're just saying I leave everything to Jane Doe, the document should be fine. Unfortunately, a lot of the documents that I've reviewed rely on that relationship, as a lot of template documents that are out there end up talking about my husband or my wife, and they just replaced it with partner. So there are a lot of different things that we could talk about with estate planning, and I'd be happy to take questions, but I guess my time is about up, so I'll turn it over to Yvonne.
Thank you. And seeing that he was so gracious to come out as straight, my name is Yvonne Cook Riley, and I am a person of transgendered experience. I am the T, or the tail end of the whole concept. Not only that, in my personal experience, I am the person that is responsible for putting that T in the back of the GLB back in the late 80s and early 90s. I am the founder and director of the International Foundation for Gender Education in Waltham, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C., and I have been on that board for 25 years. I am going to speak basically about the federal issues of the transgendered person existing within the federal community. We realize that we bring forth a lot of concept of personal uncomfortableness with our presence. Because you are so into the binary of the masculine and the feminine in the federal industry, you only have male bathrooms and female bathrooms, and this is the first thing that they want to talk about is where do we go to the toilet. The most important thing is to recognize the fact that we need to go to the toilet sometime. In the Forest Service, you can always, never mind, I shouldn't go there. But the issue is that I wasn't really sure of what this conference and what we were going to talk about, and as I'm starting to get a sense of the issues that are confronting the federal government as we are becoming more LGBT inclusive, is that the transgender person is in your workplace today. You might not see them as that, they might not look that way, they might not act that way, but believe me, they are there because the word transgendered is an umbrella term that represents all kinds of gender variant behavior. It doesn't mean that they are gay, straight, bisexual, or trisexual. Trisexual. Yeah, I did that. Yeah. It's like trying to figure out what it is that I'm trying. Anyway, coming back to other reasons that I am here, I also have, over the years, developed a love for Pride. And this is Pride Month. And thank goodness that we have a person in the White House, if I can say that, that has declared June as Pride Month and for the federal government, and has made great strides in being more diverse and inclusive of the diversity of our workplace, making it more animal friendly, making it more to where you can feel comfortable in having a diverse employment working area and kind of things like this. And we realize in the transgender community that there's a lot of unknowns. And I'm sitting on this panel today to present to you what it is that over 25 years that I have seen as far as the unknown, but it comes right down to we are just human people doing a human experience, having fun, and trying to do the best we can as we walk on our path. And I'm going to quit now to give people more time to talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne. My name is Judy Rudolph. I'm an attorney here in Asheville, North Carolina. I've been an attorney here since 1992. I went to the University of Georgia, which I hope is okay for some of you. I realize that may be an issue for many of you North Carolina folks. I want to talk a little bit about who I am first, because I am a very diverse person. Although I'm sitting here in this old lady white face, I come from quite a varied background. I've done everything from waiting tables to teaching special needs children. I went to law school late in life, and so I've many professional sort of experiences as well as personal experiences. I became aware of that there was such a thing as a difference in sexual orientation back in 1966. Prior to that time, I had no idea that there was even such a thing as a lesbian. And through that time, I have seen the whole community come from a place where we had to hide. We had to be in the closet, and I don't mean that lightly. I don't mean that was cute. I had to be careful. I had a daughter, and if I wasn't careful, my concern was that my daughter would be taken away from me. That was a threat. I was afraid to go to therapy because I was afraid if a therapist found out that I was gay, that she would report me to social services and they would put my daughter in foster care. That was a real concern for me as a young mother at that time. Part of when I was in Norfolk, Virginia, when I would go to a gay bar, they were very hidden. Oftentimes you couldn't see any of the lights from the outside. It looked like a dark warehouse kind of building because they were not allowed. And when the vice squad would come around, we'd have to try to hide what we were doing, which was dancing, and maybe having a beer, because it was against the law. And from those experiences, I became involved then in what was way before Gay Pride, some of the political action committees that tried to get the laws changed. It's been a long slog, and I see what I see is more and more gay people are coming out and letting people know who they are, so that you can see that gay people are just like everyone else. Most gay people don't have piercings everywhere and shaved heads, or most lesbians don't. There are lesbians who choose to have those kinds of dress codes and whatever. But more and more often what we're seeing are young professionals who are out of the closet and are willing to stand up and say, I am a gay person, I'm a lesbian, and I have children and I have a family. I have 2 children, and the pride of my life right now are my 4 grandchildren, all of whom are adopted by my daughter. Both of my children are ragingly heterosexual. My son, when he found out that I had a relationship with another woman and came to some understanding, asked me if it was okay if he liked girls, and I told him I thought that was just fine. Professionally, as I said, I've been practicing law in North Carolina since 1992. I taught special education before that. My life has pretty much been professionally involved with children in one way or another. Probably my favorite job of all time was when I was guardian ad litem attorney advocate for Buncombe County and represented children in abuse and neglect cases. Doesn't sound like a favorite job, I guess, but it was a stunning place to be, and I saw a lot of good things happen. But what I did see were a lot of gay and lesbian folks stepping up to being foster parents. They're just like other people, they make great parents. Many of the studies have shown that there's absolutely no difference in being raised in a gay and lesbian household and a heterosexual household. There is a recent study that's come out that purports to have a contrary finding, but if you look at the database, there are no gay and lesbian households that are actually examined in that particular study. So if you see that kind of information come out, please do look behind the study to see what it is. As a lawyer, when I talk to clients, I don't distinguish between who is gay and lesbian and who's not. We look at what legal services our clients need, not particularly what kind of person or what color or what religion or anything else, because we are professionals who focus on the legal issues. But GLBT people often have specialized legal needs that not all lawyers are even aware of, and there have been some really good trainings recently done locally, continuing legal educations about that to help lawyers become more aware. But some of the things that gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgender people run into often involve landlords and employers. Sometimes people are fired. Recently there was a large employer in Western North Carolina who fired all of the gay employees in his store. He could do that. This is a right-to-work state. He had the ability to personally choose to fire all of the people that he perceived, whether they were or not, people he perceived as being gay and lesbian. And these were not people who have a lot of money, who can go to court and fight a big court battle. These are people who had minimum wage type jobs and desperately needed the money and desperately needed the jobs. They were not fired because they were not doing the work they needed to do. There have been, in my practice, I have represented folks who've been evicted because they had a same-gender partner, and the landlord did not want that kind of person. They were not evicted because they broke the lease. They were not evicted because they drank or had wild parties. They were evicted because of their relationship. Unfortunately, that's not against the law. As far as housing goes, there are some federal protections. HUD laws particularly offer protection against gender stereotyping. And the definition of a family under HUD regulations includes LGBT families. However, our state laws provide no such protection, so only if you're in a federal housing project are you, as a gay and lesbian person, protected. As far as employees, GLBT employees earn less, radically less than heterosexual counterparts. There's much more harassment in the workplace. As many as 68% of gay workers report some form of workplace harassment. Some federal courts are construing non-gender conformity as sex discrimination, but we still have a long way to go with that as far as what is discrimination. Gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual people, we are not a protected class under the law. We're not protected by religion. We're not protected by race or color or creed. It's not considered a protected class. As far as educational situations are concerned, 80% of GLBT high school students report verbal harassment, and 20% of these young folks have been the victims of sexual assault, or physical assault. They are more than twice as likely as their other high school counterparts to commit suicide or attempt to commit suicide. I had a student many years ago when I represented a young man in a delinquency situation. He refused to go to school. He was 15 years old. He was 6'2", and obviously very, very gay. He had, lots of jewelry that he wore, and it was contrary to what his classmates were looked at or as normal, and he was given a lot of hard time. And the judge just said to him, "You have to go to school. You have to go to school." So in spite of the bullying, in spite of the taunting and the threatening, he had to go to school, or he was going to be incarcerated. One of the real concerns that we have in this state are hate crimes. There is a new federal law that protects folks against hate crimes, but there's nothing in North Carolina, and it's really difficult to protect yourself if you are a victim of a hate crime. You can, you have the same protections as any other victim of assault and battery and those sorts of things, but those are very mildly treated crimes, and they're not in the felony range, whereas a hate crime should be a felony. It is on the federal level at any rate. I wanted to talk a little bit about seniors and, excuse me, my time is up. Oh, 2 minutes. Oh no. For a lawyer to talk for 10 minutes about the law is like having a 7-course meal that you have to eat in 10 minutes. Can't do it. Okay, let me talk real quickly then about second parent adoptions, because I wanted to at least let you know what those are. Second parent adoption occurs when one partner in an unmarried couple adopts the other partner's biological child. That's akin to a step parent adopting a child, but in North Carolina, as you heard from Amendment 1, GLBT folks can't get married, and so now that this is one of the things that they're trying to do to be a family. There's a new case, Fisher-Bourne v. Smith, that was just filed by the ACLU on the behalf of 6 couples, and we'll be anxious to see how that comes out, but they're suing because these adoptions have been declared null and void by our Supreme Court in North Carolina. I guess I want to say one final thing, that our culture may primarily be white, male, and Christian, but this country was founded on notions of individual freedom, personal liberty, and independence of thought. And that means I don't have to agree with my fellow Americans who belong to the NRA or Hispanic Catholics or Buddhist monks, nor do I have to emulate their practices and beliefs. But the state does not have the right or the authority to abridge their rights to exercise their freedoms or my right to disagree.
Good morning, everybody. Let me just take this moment before I continue and thank Jennifer for the opportunity to participate on this panel. My name is Mel Furgenbaum. I represent an organization called PFLAG. PFLAG stands for the Parents, Friends of Lesbians and Gays. Before I get into the organization itself, I'd like to back up and give you a personal story of how I got involved. I have 3 children, and back in the early 80s, the oldest one called my wife and myself into his bedroom, sat us down, and made the announcement that he is gay. Now, this is the early 80s. I was not exposed to or aware of the community, gay lesbian community. And so I asked him a question which, through the 30 years since, when I look back, I say to myself, there must have been another question I could have asked, but I didn't. When he announced that he was gay, I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Are you sure?" Looking back, I'm sure he took all of the time and the effort and the thinking and the thought that went into making this announcement to come out. But again, I was not exposed to the gay lesbian community back then. So I didn't know what to say other than that. Since Mark came out, it's never really been an issue in our family. Nobody had come out before. No one has come out since. And so he came out courageously to us, his brother, his sister, his aunts, uncles, cousins. It was never an issue in our family. Mark is currently living in Denver. He has his group of friends, whether they are gay, lesbian, straight. He is also a member of the Denver Gay Men's Chorus, which is 75 to 100 strong as far as men is concerned. And I've been out there to attend many of their concerts, which was a delight for me. One of the memories I have is both in Denver and in Florida to participate with Mark in a gay pride parade, walking, each of us holding one end of a banner. So it was never an issue, never has been an issue as far as our family is concerned. Some years thereafter, Mark called and said, "There's an organization that I would like you to participate in, go to a meeting. The organization is called PFLAG." And I said, "Sure." And so we went to a meeting, and this was years ago, never left. PFLAG has been very important to me, both as a way of educating myself and a way of just being present with people and to witness their courage. PFLAG is an organization headquartered out of Washington, D.C. It's both an advocacy group and a support group. Members are in excess of 200,000. There's over 350 chapters or affiliates around the country. We have one here in Asheville. How we do our meetings here, which is once a month, is the meetings is a 2-hour meeting, and so for the first half of the meeting, we just go around the room, whoever's there, and give them an opportunity to tell their story. And my story is, as I've discussed it with you. The stories I have heard in the years that I have been a member of PFLAG just touch me deeply. The pain, the grief, the anger, and the courage for both parents and children to express themselves where they would not have an opportunity to do that elsewhere. One of our local members talks about her brother who died at 54, and she tearfully said that if he only knew of PFLAG back then, it may have saved his life, because he just ate himself up inside because he had nowhere to go to express himself. So PFLAG has been important in my life, in our lives as a family. and just to hear the various stories that come out of a PFLAG meeting, a local Asheville chapter PFLAG meeting, of men, women, their marriages, their courage to come out to their partners, the dissolution of a marriage, the remaining of friends in most cases. There is one gentleman in his mid-70s still. He has come out years ago, back in the 70s, still vacations with his wife. They are still married. So the various stories that have come out over the years, as I mention and repeat, have touched me deeply. So PFLAG is an opportunity for people to, without any judgment, come, participate, speak their story, and not have to hide. If there are any questions as far as PFLAG is concerned, I would be more than happy to answer them.
We're going to go to Washington now. Blake, that's your cue. Turn on your volume, and I presume you guys are connected with them.
Good. Can you all hear me okay? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Hearing good. Okay. I'm Blake Beldy. I'm the president of USDA Globe, and I'm a senior environmental scientist with departmental management. I work for the Assistant Secretary for Administration. Although originally my group was part of the Forest Service and engineering, we got moved over to the department about 12 years ago. And it's a real pleasure, a real honor to be invited to talk with you all. I've got my Duke blue tie on today. I actually went to Duke Forestry School, so my heart is in North Carolina, although I would rather be in Asheville than in Washington, D.C. today, but unfortunately wasn't able to travel down there. USDA Globe has been around since 1993. We were sanctioned by the department back then, and we're an overarching umbrella organization of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender employees of USDA and our allies. Right now, we are primarily present to fellow employees through our Facebook page. We had to take down our web page several years ago. Those of you that are familiar with web pages and hosting, it can be expensive. Right now, our primary focus has been to work with the special emphasis program managers. We appreciate particularly Patricia Jackman in the Forest Service for including USDA Globe and many of the activities, including us on their monthly conference calls, so that we can get information out to you all about what's going on both inside the Beltway and how it applies to federal employees. Originally, when USDA Globe started, there was a larger social component for people inside the Beltway, and then over the years it's kind of migrated and evolved into one of information, to get information out to people in the field. Most of our members are out in the field. Most of them are Forest Service, and most of them are women, which surprises a lot of people, particularly in the Forest Service. We talk to them about that. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of out members in the WO, which makes it hard for us to communicate effectively as we'd like to out in the field. We also, what I wanted to do today briefly is just update you on some of the things that are going on of interest to you all, and to welcome you and to wish you all a happy Pride. A lot of times I get asked, why do we even have a Pride Month celebration? Why is it important in the Department of Agriculture that we have a Pride Month? You know, typically you get the, why can't you all just be quiet about, you know, who you are? And I think one of the things that is important for us as LGBT employees and our allies is that when we come to work, we bring the whole person. Whether that's, you know, what did you do over the weekend? What did you, you know, how is your family? Even something as basic as Father's Day yesterday, coming in and talking to your colleagues about it. It's a matter of trust. If you come into work and how's your weekend? Oh, fine. And you don't share who you are, sometimes that can be perceived as, oh, he's not a team player. I know when I first came to the Forest Service, one of the common practices was to call staff meetings the family meetings. And a lot of times that kind of made me, as a gay man, kind of feel as an outsider because I wasn't able to talk about my family, or was sort of afraid to. And I rapidly got over that after my first year here in the Department of Agriculture. I had come from the Department of Defense, so it was quite a culture change for me to come, and one that I was glad to make. One of the things that I wanted to talk with you all about today, hopefully you have seen the department's Pride celebration. It is available online. The entire thing was filmed. Congressman Barney Frank was our speaker this year, and he did an outstanding job. We also heard remarks from the Secretary of Agriculture, and we also, had an opportunity to hear from the Deputy Chief of Staff and also the Deputy Secretary. The last 4 years, the Secretary or the Deputy Secretary this year have been present to celebrate Pride with us. During the last administration, it was a little bit tougher. We didn't have the Secretary's approval, but we did have senior leadership attending and participating and actually supporting and conducting the annual Pride celebrations. Globe hasn't had to run a Pride celebration since the second year of the last administration. One of the things that's come up recently that I wanted to talk with you all about, particularly of interest to the Forest Service. Last year, the General Services Administration, GSA, changed the travel relocation regs to change the definition of what constituted a partner or a spouse to include our domestic partners. What that means for Forest Service employees is that if you're relocated for your job, you no longer have to either hide your assets with the Forest Service employee, lie about them, or, God forbid, you have to sell, the non-federal partner's interest in the house to the person so you can get your, house and relocation done. The department issued a memo a year ago, May, implementing that. We're still waiting for the department. We've been working with the department to change the departmental regulation, which will then trickle down to the other the 19 agencies in USDA to make that official. Contact us if you are finding a problem. The word should have gotten out that it is now available for us to do. The other thing, of course, that's been on everybody, for LGBT employees' minds, has been the Defense of Marriage Act, and particularly the third section of 3 that prohibits us from extending federal benefits to our partners and spouses, health insurance, retirement benefits, a total of 1,300 different federal benefits, but most perniciously the retirement and health benefits. I know it affects me personally. I'm paying $700 a month COBRA for my partner so that he can continue to receive chemotherapy. It would be great if I could put him on my health benefit plan. I've also had to do a lot of creative things retirement-wise, which brings estate planning. I'm a Virginia resident, so like North Carolina, I'm living under a fairly oppressive state constitution right now that might even give relatives who aren't as supportive an opportunity to challenge my will should I meet an untimely demise. I think one of the things that everybody's focused on the third section, they don't look at the second section. What the second section of DOMA did was basically vacate the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution. It said that, for example, if Massachusetts marries somebody, another state doesn't have to recognize that marriage. Now, one of the interesting things as we were going through the debate on the North Carolina thing, North Carolina, Virginia, D.C., Maryland, for example, all marry first cousins. West Virginia does not, which, surprised me. You would think it would be the other way around. But West Virginia has to recognize those first cousin marriages from North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. What DOMA did was say that West Virginia does not have to recognize the gay marriages from Massachusetts, from Iowa, from Vermont, and some of the other states that have it, from New York. So, of course, we've been focusing on the repeal of Section 3, and there are a couple of promising cases that are currently under appeal, and we expect that to, hit the Supreme Court, as we've got 5 or 6 decisions now, but also hopefully the second one will come too. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you all is, one of the things that we're seeing is the younger federal employees that are coming into the workforce, particularly the LGBT ones, and even the straight ones, our allies, they don't understand what the big fuss is all about. That's going to be a challenge for managers. That's going to be a challenge for us as older LGBT employees when we're constantly challenged. How come Globe doesn't push for queer rights? How come Globe doesn't push for questioning or more aggressive on transgender rights? Those are all challenges, as we heard. Those are challenging issues. The last thing that I wanted to just update you all on in closing, and I'll be here the whole time to answer questions. There was recently an opinion by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, that basically said that discrimination based on transgender issues was sex discrimination. And that is huge because that gives transgender employees the potential to pursue cases under Title VII. Basically, it gives transgender federal employees more protection than the LGBs. And, some people have interpreted that EEOC has done that. All the EEOC did was take the alcohol, tobacco, firearms federal employee, remand it back to ATF and said, no, your employee has a case. You can't just dismiss it. You have to look at it on the merits. So we're waiting. Secretary Vilsack added a year ago to the department's non-discrimination policy that we don't discriminate on the basis of gender identity, gender expression, but instead of putting that with sexual orientation, he actually directed us to put it with sex. So at least at the department level and hopefully at all the agency levels, that's been linked over. What does that mean? It means that we have to educate the CR departments and the HR departments of what this means. And so we're working on developing policies to do that. With that, I'll turn it over to the next. And thank you all for inviting me, and I'll be here to answer questions.
Thanks, Blake. Jim?
Good morning. I'm Jim Fawcett with Youth Outright, and
thank you very much for having us here today. I'd like to start off with what I think is simple and a fundamental way that you can look at the issues that confront LGBTQ youth. And I think it's something you've all heard before, and some of you have actually said this, and some of you have hidden behind it because your mother told you this. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. That's not true. They hurt. They hurt a lot. And what's more, oftentimes the bully, the person who's saying those words, may resort to violence. And violence in teens. Not just one, but probably more insidious. It's the violence that a child can do to themselves. We're all familiar with abuse, self-abuse, addiction, suicide attempts, successful suicide attempts. These are what our youth deal with. It may seem paradoxical in this conversation that that actually we're having this conversation, period, in the federal government agency. But there has been great strides in the larger community. Amendment 1 aside. But for some reason, all kids, but especially GLBTQ kids, seem to be more bullied, more discriminated against than they once were. I don't have an answer to that. At Youth Outright, we believe that no youth, regardless of their sexual orientation or their gender identification, should be bullied, harassed, or discriminated against because of who they are or who they are perceived to be. Many youth are perceived to be gay and suffer the same harassment and bullying that gay kids can. We are an advocacy group for youth. We also are committed to youth leadership. We do this by providing affirmation, information, resources, and both peer and adult support for LGBTQ. The Q in our case is questioning. Youth ages 14 to 23 in Western North Carolina, 18 counties of Western North Carolina. Based on the 2010 census, as well as a report from the William Institute at the University of California Law School, we estimate that there are probably more than 4,000 LGBTQ youth in Western North Carolina. The majority of them are in Buncombe County, or 1,000 of them plus would be in Buncombe County because of our population density. But I like to also talk about those 40 youth that might be in Swain or Graham County and just how lonely they are. We do things in several different ways. We partner with a lot of other organizations, some LGBT organizations, some not. We certainly have relationships with WNCAP. We also, one of the things we are with is working with the Asheville and Buncombe County schools on things like Safe Schools for All, No Bullying Week. This, in preparation for this, the 2012-2013 school year, we'll be working with this group that comes together, Safe Schools for All, to help provide training for the teachers. Because that's really where we need to do it. The teachers, the counselors, the social workers, and in some cases I've heard that a youth will most trust the janitor. So that is what we, that's the environment. We need to create the environment. We can't do a lot to empower youth without changing the outer world. We also make sure that we don't counsel, we refer them to other people. We try to make it accessible to all the youth, the resources that are available to them and their parents. A lot of parents really do want to support their kids. I mean, once they get past the initial shock, perhaps, they're their kids. And most, well, I would say many times, they really want to make the world better for them. Now, we can reach kids one-on-one here in Buncombe County, but it's hard to reach kids in Swain and Graham. We don't have the resources to actually be there. So we are revamping our website to make links of those resources available to them. And those resources will include, is there a welcoming or supportive congregation or synagogue in your county? Now, there are about 40 to 50 in Western North Carolina. Most of them are in Buncombe County, several in Henderson County, and but there's still other places too. So, and not in every county. But sometimes that will be the only place they can go. We live in a religious community. And sometimes after your parents, if you can't go to your parents, if you grew up in a religious community, you were always taught you could go to your pastor or your rabbi. And sometimes a gay kid does not think they can. So we want them to know where they can, and the congregation's going to welcome them. It also includes what gay-straight alliance may exist in the county schools. No surprise here, it's Buncombe and Henderson County that have them. The others don't. Not yet. But also, in exploring this, we want to identify all the colleges, universities, and community colleges that might have a gay-straight network. And sometimes we just start off by, do you have non-discrimination policies? That means that's going to be a more welcoming place than somebody else. And there are surprisingly several of those. So we want to provide that information. It'll be available on our website. But the core of what we do is provide a safe, welcoming, and supportive environment for youth to come and meet together. We do this on a weekly basis here in Asheville, downtown First Congregational United Church of Christ. On Sundays, we meet up in the tower. That's where they want to meet. We may have 15, and I can say kids here. I try to say youth, but it slips out a lot. And we are starting a monthly meeting in Hendersonville. Now, what we do with these meetings, first of all, it's safe. They get to come and be themselves. They get to come, and for once that week, maybe they are in the majority and not the minority. That doesn't mean we get lots of straight kids that come, their friends, and their siblings will come with them. But we do activities, we watch movies, we have guest speakers about gay rights, fiction, gay history. We collaborate with a lot of other organizations. But sometimes we do nothing more than talk about dating, because dating for gay kids is no different, and the issues are no more mind-trapped than they are for straight kids. Just a little more, perhaps. And sometimes just to have pizza, sometimes they have some pressing issue that they have to talk about. Someone just broke up with his boyfriend yesterday. That's traumatic. It's traumatic for any child. But it's especially traumatic because the other kids looked at this one as a perfect relationship. Now, any of us that are a little older realize that there's no such thing as a perfect relationship when you're 16 years old. But it sure does feel like it at the time. So thanks for having us. Our work is cut out for us, but these kids are pretty amazing. And they have a story to tell, and we want to help them tell their story and make sure they have an audience to tell it to. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. My name is Chris Weinbrenner, and I work for the Western North Carolina AIDS Project. The Western North Carolina AIDS Project is an AIDS service organization, and I am here to let you know that AIDS is not a gay disease, but AIDS is a disease that does affect the gay community even today, 31 years into the epidemic. The agency that I work for is a 501c3 nonprofit. We receive our funding through the federal government in part, through the Ryan White Care Act. We receive state dollars, we receive money from the CDC, as well as private donations, grants from places like AIDS United and the Elton John Foundation, as well as private donations and fundraising. I brought a video of our agency and its services today, not only to promote what we do, but it's kind of indicative of a lot of the work that's being done across the country by AIDS service organizations like WNCAP. And if our trusty IT guy would like to cue up the video, we'll go to that, and I'll wrap it up at the end.
Millions of people worldwide have been affected by HIV and AIDS. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that over 50,000 people contract HIV each year in the United States. Founded in 1986, the Western North Carolina AIDS Project provides services free of charge to the people of Western North Carolina, hundreds of men, women, and children living with HIV and AIDS. Education and prevention are key to confronting the AIDS epidemic. Trained WNCAP educators travel to classrooms, community centers, local jails, substance abuse treatment facilities, and a variety of other settings. They share vital information, resources, and prevention strategies with any group upon request. They also reach out one-on-one to at-risk individuals on the streets, in bars, and in other public places.
I think the community needs to be educated about HIV and AIDS, because the more we can educate the community about this, the better off the community will be.
WNCAP educators make a point of trying to reach the highest risk groups possible, because that's where the education needs to happen the most.
I'm involved with WNCAP as a sister facilitator. Sister means sisters informing sisters about topics on AIDS. The important part of sister is educating African American women on how to protect themselves, how to be tested, and giving them information on where to go if they get a positive result.
prevention education needs to happen for everyone. Everyone needs to be educated. And so because of that, we make a point of going into the middle schools when we're invited, and in the high schools and after school programs.
WNCAP developed a multimedia campaign called I Need You to Know. It reaches out to a broad range of people through print and broadcasts, and it just gets the message out that we need to work together to stamp out the stigma associated with HIV and AIDS.
For those living with HIV and AIDS, WNCAP offers a range of support services. Caring case managers can help clients access financial assistance for food, housing, transportation, and other basic needs.
I volunteer with a food pantry that specifically helps HIV/AIDS clients meet their food needs. WNCAP has volunteer drivers who take food boxes to these clients.
One of the important things that WNCAP provides is transportation, because it's so necessary. So many people don't have the necessary transportation or access to a system where they can get around. And it's important because the volunteers who work for WNCAP can transport these people back and forth to the necessary appointments.
Through a confidential support group, an ongoing client buddy program, and seasonal social events, WNCAP hopes to empower clients to live fully despite their diagnosis. Most importantly, WNCAP case managers help men and women living with HIV and AIDS to get the medical care and medications they need to stay healthy.
I see my role as a WNCAP case manager to foster a relationship where I can teach clients how to advocate for themselves and just how to really be the best person that they can be.
With WNCAP, I feel safe and cared for. I feel as though everyone is on my side.
One of my biggest challenges was finding housing once I moved here. That was in stages. They helped me find a place where I shared housing with other men. Then they helped me to find housing of my own, which was a great accomplishment.
WNCAP's role in the community is to raise public awareness about HIV and AIDS. This is done through annual fundraisers and ongoing advocacy projects. These various events generate resources for WNCAP that support essential services, create opportunities for involvement by hundreds of volunteers, and invite the broader community to join the fight against AIDS.
Dining Out for Life is one of WNCAP's biggest fundraisers. It involves local restaurants. It brings the community in. It raises funds for WNCAP and gets the services of WNCAP out to the community. It's just a fun way to get the community involved and to spread WNCAP's message.
We reach out to the public by having these huge events. And our biggest event once a year is the annual Raise Your Hand. It's an auction and brings the community together, and then they learn about who we are and what we are and why we are.
Each year for World AIDS Day, WNCAP brings the AIDS quilt to Asheville. Family and friends gather so that they can remember friends who have died with HIV and AIDS. WNCAP needs the financial support and community support in order to continue its message to help stamp out HIV and AIDS.
This is not someone else's problem. This is our problem. We are all part of the solution. Ending the AIDS epidemic starts with you.
So we're seeing a resurgence in young MSM. The rates are sky high. The rates in the South are terrible. If you live in the South, your likelihood of getting infected with AIDS and then dying of AIDS is much higher than if you live somewhere else in the United States. Right now in this country, we have over 1.2 million people living with the disease. Worldwide, we have 33 million. And to date, over 25 million people have died We're 31 years into it. So these days, what I want to leave you with is we need to make sure that people are getting tested. National HIV Testing Day is on June 27th. If you are sexually active, if you come into contact with blood products, if you are an IDU, intravenous drug user, you need to get tested. Even if you think that you might not want to get tested, even if it comes into your mind, get tested. All the local health departments have free testing. And I also want to make sure that everybody knows that there are meds out there, but we need to maintain people's access to these life-saving meds. Each state in this country has an AIDS drug assistance program, which is funded in part by the federal government and in part by the state legislature. And we need to make sure that our elected representatives are educated about AIDS and are making decisions that will help people living with AIDS continue to be productive members of society. We spoke with Blake earlier, and I'm here to inform you that North Carolina is in the top 10 of new HIV infections in the country. It's in the top 10 as far as states. But our own capital, Washington, D.C., has the highest infection rates in the entire nation. So AIDS is still very much a problem. We're 31 years into the epidemic, and it's one point of action that I would suggest everybody do is make sure that you're talking to your young people about it. If you need to learn more information, there's a lot of stuff on the web. CDC has information. There's just a lot of information out there, but just do not think that it has gone away. If it had gone away, I wouldn't have been able to show you that WinCap video. We're one of those organizations where in a perfect world we would not exist, but we do thank you for giving us time today, and I echo Mel's sentiments in thanking Jennifer and Wayne for putting this together today, and I'll be glad to take questions later on if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Jennifer, thank you for inviting us. Wayne, thank you. Kathy Marsacci, well, let's go back here. My name is Alan Murray, and I have been involved with the Asheville LGBT community now for the past 12 years. I was the president of the oldest GLBT organization in Asheville called CLOSER, standard for Community Liaison Organization for Support, Education, and Reform. The organization formed 32 years ago. 32 years ago, you get 3 people that are gay standing on a street corner, they were arrested. It was illegal for them to gather. Now, that has changed because of people like this panel. But at that time, the church right outside of the Biltmore Estate, All Souls Episcopal Church, which is an affirming church, allowed the closer group to meet there. And at that time, we had 150 people that on Tuesday night from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock could be who they were. Just like Jim and Mel have said, they could come and let their hair down. They could feel free. They could feel safe. And just be who they were. Getting back to Jeff and Kathy Marsacci, they used to come to Closer when Closer was existing. And Kathy got a hold of Jennifer, or Jennifer got a hold of Kathy. I'm not sure how it went. And they said, if you need to know anything about gay Asheville, contact Alan. That's how this panel came about. I have got probably the largest GLBT network established and knowledge in the area. I'm connected with United Way. If anyone within it is just Buncombe County, isn't it, Chris, for the 211 program?
I believe so.
If you go to a landline, not a cell phone, but an actual landline, and dial 211, you will be connected with United Way. And you can ask them for anything. Now, if you go to 211 and ask what's queer in Asheville, you'll get my phone number. So, you can take that any way you want to. I'm going to kind of try to fill in some of the gaps where some of the other people have left. It really is interesting in the fact that today you've heard it mentioned two different ways. You've heard people say GLBT, LGBT, it's all the same thing. It doesn't make any difference what order you put those letters in. Part of what, like Jeff has talked about, is his domestic partnership. Jeff has traveled around the United States now, and I believe he has established in other states training programs to teach lawyers how to do GLBT estate planning. Yvonne, as in with, is also transgender. She's also on the board with Asheville After Dark, and she's also on the Blue Ridge Pride board. Blue Ridge Pride now is in its 4th year. This year, CNN says that if you want to go to a Pride event, Asheville is in the top 5. Am I correct, Yvonne?
It is number 5 in the world to go to this year.
Yes.
Travel and leisure section. Only because we have a fantastic, small, intimate pride.
Last year, we held Pride in Pack Square. That is the 3 city blocks that extend from the county courthouse steps to Vance Monument. We had over 9,000 people there and 102 vendors, Yvonne?
And we're waiting to get into the Federal Park Service.
There you go. This is just showing you that we're here, we're strong. And there wasn't any problem. The police love it whenever we come and do an event, because they said there's no issues whatsoever. Judy Rudolph down there is fantastic mediator. She has solved many problems for many of the people within the GLBT community here, in just her knowledge of the law. Mel, you and I really haven't had a lot to deal with, but I have dealt with PFLAG in the past here. PFLAG will help any of those people out there that if you do have a child, or if you yourself are gay, and you're trying to deal with your children and them, the conflict that you have on whether you're gay or they're gay, it doesn't matter. PFLAG can help you. You have a lot of support there. Jim with Youth Outright. Youth Outright, those kids are great. That probably has to be one of my big ones. I love it. You're going to hear a lot of stats here. All these stats can be backed up. You can go to things like the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force in Washington. And I'm sure since you all are a federal government organization, you're willing to trust your own government? Maybe. According to the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, just for your own specs here, there are 942 homeless GLBT youth between the ages of 9 and 18 years of age living in the streets of the 19 counties of Western North Carolina. That's not including the 1,000 that Jim talked about and that he knows about. These are kids that have been thrown out of their homes because they're associating with the GLBT community. Can y'all live with that fact? You know, kind of hard to go with. Chris is, I love Chris. I've done lots of events with Chris. Chris has helped in numerous things with Pride and so forth and so on. And I also help him. I do, as you saw, delivering of food boxes. I have 6 clients that I deliver food boxes to every other Saturday. Important issue. We need volunteers. You don't have to be gay to do it. You just got to care. As far as my existence with all of this, I guess I'm the catalyst here. I'm the one that's brought all of these people together in some way or another. I'm also involved with Blue Ridge Pride. I'm on the planning committee where we do events throughout the county, actually without the state. We go to Raleigh to the Pride event there. We go to Clemson. We go to Spartanburg. Last year we were out in Madison County at the Arts Council where we raised $400 in an auction for them to help educate. The big term you've heard today is education. I think everybody on this panel has made that statement. If you all don't know, ask. I'm almost 60 years old, and I had a high school teacher tell me at one point, there is only one stupid question, and that's the one you never ask, because it's always on somebody else's mind. So please, today, feel free, ask questions. Dan Marshall, who is now deceased but was part of the helping of starting with Closer, had a very, very good saying that I've always enjoyed, and I like to live by it. We may have a difference of opinion, but we can all agree to disagree. Jennifer, Wayne, thank you very much for having us.
I want to thank the panel. I thought it was an excellent job. I enjoyed hearing each of your
comments. I enjoyed listening to you. One thing that I did want to say is the focus may have been on somewhat in Asheville area, but you have to realize that these issues that they talk about is all across the entire nation. And the purpose here is to identify resources locally in your own backyard. Folks like these guys and ladies are here, and they're the same elsewhere in other communities. And it's really important and behooves you to step out and to reach out to individuals if you need so. I think Blake had an excellent point when he talked about the LGBT individual. When we come to work as an individual, and we bring all that with us. And some of us may think, well, why do I need to know about AIDS? I think Chris talked about that. It just is not a gay issue. It involves all individuals. And it's just, you talked about MSM, but within the young community, overall, AIDS has really increased. And those are our children. Those are our offspring. So I think it really becomes important to think about what you as an individual can do locally within your own community and the resources that are available locally in that community. I think it was Judy, or maybe it was Yvonne, is talking about the problems you have. And one thing I noticed driving all the time are these pictures of a man, a woman, and the kids on the back of the on the windows. And my wife and I said, can we get two guys and put two guys on there? Or put two ladies and see what happens? I looked at her and said, our car's beat up enough. I don't want it to be totally vandalized. But those are the issues that, the inability to actually express who you are on a daily basis. Just the aspect of asking Jennifer, how's your partner today? It's who you are. It's what we are. So with that, I want to open up, and these include individuals out there in the ether, to ask questions. And I presume there are a few questions maybe in this room. And so with that, I'll start with the room here, and then we maybe go out there in the ether land and then come back.
Judy, this was for you. You were starting to talk about, I think, healthcare. Judy, you were starting to talk about healthcare issues for older LGBT, and that's me as I'm moving into that arena and thinking about long-term health care and where are my partner and I going to live at some point, because we will more than likely have to enter some kind of arranged living facility or something like that, and probably won't be able to live independently. So I just wondered if you could continue that conversation and give a little bit of information.
I'll do my best, Jennifer. It's a pretty huge topic, but what we're seeing with a lot of our seniors is that they either lose their health insurance, or as they get older, they don't have the resources. And with particularly gay and lesbian folks, sometimes the partner with the money dies and the family gets the money, and the poor partner is left without resources. We also have seen lots of situations where gay and lesbian couples have not done some of the planning that that we've talked about here that need to happen with healthcare powers of attorney and wills, and oftentimes those folks will end up with in a hospital situation, and their partner can't come visit, can't make decisions. They get taken away to the other side of the state. If one partner is a veteran, they may get placed in veterans resources that the other partner doesn't have access to. There are all kinds of things that happen to gay and lesbian couples when they get to be older that don't happen to married couples because they're not married and they don't have those benefits. When one partner dies, the other partner often, if they're married, they can get Social Security or pension benefits that are not available to couples who can't get married. Some of the resources that are available for gay and lesbian folks, been handed a great piece of paper here that says the National Resource Center on GLBT and Aging at lgbtagingcenter.org, which looks like a really good resource. Services and Advocacy for GLBT Elders called SAGE at sageusa.org. Also, in this area, the Campaign for Southern Equality has a list of attorneys who are gay-friendly attorneys. And I would also recommend that getting in touch with those. And then, of course, PFLAG and other organizations that you've heard here today also have resources that would be helpful to you in doing your planning. And then, of course, we have an attorney right here on the board, on this panel, who does end-of-life planning sorts of things that I would recommend as well.
Do you want to make a comment, Blake?
One of the things that we stress is a lot of us, particularly as we, 30 years into our federal career or more, one of the things that we encourage our members to do, and anybody involved in a domestic relationship, is to make sure your designation of beneficiaries are up to date. Even though you can't give your retirement, CSRS, or FERS, you want to make sure that your designation of beneficiary for your life insurance, if you have FEGLI, you want to make sure that your designation for your last paycheck and your annual leave, that's not your mother, that was the only person that you had 30 years ago. There's a whole list. There's about 10 different forms you want to make sure are up to date. And also you want to make sure that along with your will, that you include the form that your survivor will need to fill out in order to get those benefits, particularly if they're not federal, because that can be a very daunting task. And also if you've had military service as part of your career, to make sure that some of the smaller VA benefits where you can designate a particular individual are up to date and current, and they know where to find them and how to apply for those benefits. We send that out to all our members on Valentine's Day to make as just a reminder to make sure you really love your lover.
Blake is a good in the Washington office, and then he also mentioned Patricia Jackman. And so the federal employees who want information, they can come to me. You can go to your civil rights director, and also there are resources in Washington and individuals. So for the federal employee, you do have places to go to get information so that you can make the right decisions. And that's really important. Jeff, you wanted to say something?
I'd also like to make a comment that politically there seems to be so much of a fight over the issue of gay marriage that it tends to make people think that if only we could get married, we'll have everything we want, and if we can't get married, there's nothing we can do. Well, that's not true in either case. In both cases, if you put together the right documents, you make sure those beneficiary designations are taken care of the right way, just sit down with an attorney who understands domestic partner estate planning. They can go through all these issues and you'll quickly begin to realize that there is a lot that you can do. Back when Massachusetts became the first state that allowed gay marriage, there was actually a congressman up there, Jerry Studds, who married his partner and said, okay, we're all right, and figured that his partner would be getting his pension. He wasn't, because under the federal regulations, they weren't considered married, even though Massachusetts recognized it. But he could have taken another option on his pension, put it into an annuity, and had that pension available for his partner, but he didn't do it because he didn't know. And this is a congressman. Didn't do this. So please, if you're in a partnership, get the information and act upon it. There's a lot that you can do if you do it the right way.
Okay, this is a comment to Blake. It's something maybe through our retirement training, our retirement workshops, and here might be a good place to inject some LGBT. So, if you're LGBT, you've got to do these things, and here are resources. And I'm not sure, I've not gone through a retirement workshop, but I bet they don't address those issues. There was nothing, and I think that's really a good place to start there in the Washington office, Blake. Were you going to comment?
Sessions here in Washington that I've been in, they don't call it a domestic partner. What they do call it, and if you search online at opm.gov, it's called a survivable interest. If someone, a relative or a friend, has a survivable interest, you can designate them to be the beneficiary. And it's a little complicated, but they're absolutely right. A good estate planner, particularly one that's familiar with CSRS and FERS retirement systems, can help you do that. But like I said, it's called survivable interest.
All right. Do we have a way to know there's a question from the field? Mike? Ed. Oh, I see Jim Goulden raising his hand. Jim?
Yeah, Jim Goulden, project leader for the Ecology and Management Southern Pines unit out in Hot Springs, Arkansas, with responsibilities for personnel in Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. One of the things as a field line officer that would be useful would be a list of the 10 most prominent issues that GLBT personnel face and how we could advise them to do some of these issues that you're talking about. And this might be a question for Blake. Is there sort of a line officer's field guide for managing GLBT employees?
A number of years ago, we developed a FAQ, frequently asked questions, for managers. We have unofficial copies of it. We weren't able to get it in the last administration actually published, but what I could do is provide that to Patricia Jackman so that she can make sure that it can be distributed throughout the Forest Service as a WO sees appropriate. I mean, I could unofficially provide it to you, but we never did get it through the Office of Communication at the time for full distribution.
Well, so could you send me a copy and I could forward it through the station Civil Rights Committee network?
Sure.
Is there an issue with doing that?
I don't have a problem with it. No, I can provide it to you. Yeah. No, the Secretary's Gay and Lesbian Employee Advisory Council produced it several years ago. We made thousands of copies of it, and then we were stopped from distributing it. I think they ended up, unfortunately, in the recycle bin, but I still have electronic copies of it.
Because, this picture is changing, certainly, but a lot of folks at line officer level just don't have a lot of experience or sensitivity about this topic. And I know we all, if you believe even the rudimentary numbers, we all have folks, GLBT staff in our units. And if we know about it, or even if we don't, I think we have some responsibility as line officers to share some of these assets, especially the issues that are associated with legal rights and the transfer of station question that you raised. I hadn't heard a thing about that. So
that's
we in line up.
That's the number one issue we hear from Forest Service employees after retirement and health benefits is transfer of station benefits.
And I've got an employee who just had a baby, and there are Family Medical Leave Act issues associated with that I, as a line officer, could use an update about in order to make good decisions with my employees. So yeah, anything that you could share with us would be ideal.
Yeah, the other document that we're almost done with putting, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, USDA Globe has been working with EPA's Globe counterpart called EPA Equality. We have a document with all the different federal benefits, the leave definitions, sick leave, emergency leave, transfer of station, with all the CFR citations so that you as a manager can go and look at it. The one thing that's held up right now, and this is going to seem real obscure unless you're 14 or 15, is whether your government form 450 for financial disclosure, whether your partner is considered a spouse, and you have to declare all the financial gifts or travel or anything that they've given you or not. And we're going back and forth between the different ethics offices on whether they are or not in light of Defense of Marriage Act. It's like, come on, guys, either he is or he isn't my partner. Make up your mind. So yeah, no, we can give you both those.
Is there any question in the room here? Yeah. Oh.
The word queer was a derogatory term. I'm hearing you say it in a different way. I'm curious about the use of the word queer.
Back in the old days, it was a very derogatory term, but the entire GLBT population co-opted the term and decided if you're going to call us that, we're going to be proud of it. So we are proud of being queer, and so it's fine to say we're queer, although high school kids still have a hard time with it.
Except our high school, the kids that come to our youth, queer is something they use quite frequently, and they use it in an affirming way. They also have pansexual. There's a fluidity to youthful orientation or identification but queer is something they use quite a lot in a good way. No, questioning. Yeah. But there are some that go, our alphabet soup gets bigger all the time. So I've seen LGBTQ, which would be questioning queer, and then I know there are others in there too.
In, again, response to your question, the questioning is the people that don't know where they stand. That's why it's does that clarify what you were trying? Because it's like you possibly have a son that is sitting there going, well, I really don't like girls, but he's kind of cute, but I'm not. So he has that whole quote-unquote questioning aspect. So that's where that questioning comes from.
Is there a question in the field? Do we have anybody who may have a question in the field? Can they call in? Oh, I don't know who they are, but please ask.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Pat Jackman, and I am the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Special Emphasis Program Manager here in the Washington office. And I want to thank you, Wayne and Jennifer, for organizing such a wonderful panel. I've really learned a lot. And I just wanted to share just a little bit. As you had heard, the USDA is way in the forefront of all the federal agents or departments for the support of the LGBT program. We have special emphasis program managers. I am the one who's been assigned, and we have representatives, LGBT program managers at all the regions and stations and area. We're very, very proactive here in the Forest Service because we've got lots of support from the department. Here in the Civil Rights staff, annually we have the EEOC self-assessment report that we produce, and there are questions in there. We are ensuring that this tool, it's called MD 715, identifies barriers in the workplace, and we are ensuring that our program area has input to those barriers, to identify barriers to the LGBT community. And we're all the special emphasis program managers, as Wayne is doing a fantastic job. Our part is responsibility is education, awareness, inclusion. The other area that we're looking into is outreach and recruitment. And many of our colleagues are going to job fairs and contacting colleges and universities where there are LGBT counselors, career counselors, to encourage and to remind them that the Forest Service, USDA, can be an employer of choice. We are inclusive. We are very supportive. So this month, our Pride Month, I thank the Southern Research Station for such a wonderful program. I want to thank you. And as Blake had said, and we depend a lot upon Blake and Globe for resources, those frequently asked questions, the guide for managers, we will get that information to you. We do have several web pages throughout the country. So again, thank you very much, Wayne.
I wanted to point,
even though the Forest Service and USDA is very proactive, we still have issues in the field, and we've heard of issues in the field. And so, if individuals feel that there is a barrier that they're facing, or there is a problem they're facing, there are resources you can turn to. There are people you can go to. You don't have to stand and take it. And that's the purpose here. Is the whole special emphasis program is to identify policies, procedures, and practices that create barriers. And if there are something there that you perceive as an individual, please come either to me or Cheryl. Cheryl is our front person. She has been very supportive. She's the director of the program, or me. And if you want comfortable approaching us, there are individuals in Washington, but do so. I mean, it really behooves you to step forward. And I think everyone on the panel would say that. It's up to you as an individual. Any questions here? Somebody else want to ask a question? Any question in the field?
Yeah, Wayne, this is Jim White from the Northern Research Station. I'm the SPM Northern Station.
Okay.
And I did want to address one issue. Jennifer asked about long-term care insurance and long-term care. And I wanted to make sure people in the federal employment were aware that is a resource, one of the few that are available to same-sex partners of federal employees. So you can sign up and have your spouse included on the federal long-term care insurance program.
The only significant difference, though, is that since you're not married or recognized as married, they have to go through full underwriting.
Yeah, that's correct. Right now, unfortunately, we've missed the open season they had last year, where they would have avoided that, but they do have to go through that full underwriting. You're correct.
Any more questions in the field? All right, and I have no questions here. I definitely want to. Oh, Blake's got one. He's got a question. You're supposed to have all the answers.
Just a comment. Thank you all so much for inviting me. And one of the things that just occurred that I didn't mention was every federal employee received their annual survey. And for the first time, we had LGBT questions on there. So Patricia and I are eagerly awaiting the results of the survey, because we always get asked how many LGBT employees are there. And so for the first time, we've actually been able to ask for people to self-identify. So that'll be very interesting information. And Also, we're looking forward to working with Patricia on the MD 715 report, since we haven't been a part of those reports in the past throughout the department.
Helen?
Blake, let me ask you a question, if I may, please. The report that you're talking about now, how is that necessarily going to affect? Because you're going to have a lot of people, and I mean, even now, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the Forestry Commission which are not out because they have their fears, whatever that fear may be, whether it could be fear of job or peer pressure or whatever. Do you think that those statistics will be realistic, or the information that you get actually be realistic, or will it just be hit and miss?
I think it'll be like the census data. The first couple of years, they were artificially low, but as people, found that the sky didn't fall, and they answered the question, that people will be more forthcoming. The truth of the matter is we don't know. This will provide us a baseline. It doesn't necessarily give us anything. It's not like we have recruiting and retention goals or capturing that information at all in the federal government. But for the first time, we'll at least have a starting point. And we'll be able to do things like compare the numbers that we have with national information that's available. And we'll also be able to find out, statistically whether LGBT employees have job satisfaction or not, whether they feel like they're adequately paid, whether they have opportunities for training and things like that, to see if there's a statistical difference between a regular USDA employee and an LGBT employee.
Jim, you were
Just to follow up, I took that survey and it did not, the self-identification only carried down to region and station and area. So it didn't carry, I don't think, to geographic location. So it was somewhat anonymous, I think, for the employee.
Right.
Any more questions?
Any questions in the room here? Well, it's 12 o'clock, so I'm going to conclude this panel. I want to thank the panel for being here. It was very, very informative. And I also want to thank all the individuals out in the field that participate. I think this is our first, it's actually a very historic event in the Southern Research. This is our first LGBT event here, and I think you will see one every year from here on in. And so thank you very much. Bye-bye.